everybody. Welcome to UX Night School. In this video, we're going to talk about what it means to do UX design, what it means to do UX design / research, what it means, and how these two separate things are really connected, and how we can observe and use these processes at work and everyday life. So again, welcome to UX Night School. I'm really honored that you've taken this leap of faith and joined me for this course. And if you're wondering what you just got yourself into, I hope that this presentation can reassure you a little bit. First, I'll answer the question on everyone's mind. WTF is design / research. And I will stop saying design / research because, as I like to argue, these aren't really separate things. Design thinking is a term that gets used a lot, but I find it to be a little off-putting because I observe creativity in everyday life, and I don't think that the stuff that goes on under the label design is any more creative or innovative than what people are doing every day, both at work and in their lives. But what is this process of trying things out and learning from them? And how can we make it rigorous? This is where the concept of design research comes in. Design research at the start has one very simple question. How do we know what we know? Let's say that we have a problem. It can be a silly problem or it can be a serious one. We have to start by assessing the problem area. As a native Texan, I've spent a lot of time in Louisiana. And when I see figures like this from the Louisiana Mapping Project that show how the rising sea level is clearing out large sections of the state, I'm struck. People don't tend to like the word research. Or if you're like me, it gets you pretty excited. But to put it in a separate category than creating other things or even maintaining things, I don't believe to be very productive. We'll talk a little bit about maintenance and making later in the course. I'd rather look at our efforts in this light of, are we acting on what we're learning? And what happens as a result over time because of our actions and inactions? Any work that we do, it comes down to this. We have to identify what the problems are in order to design solutions for them. And as the old saying goes, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so I wanted to share this chart with you, this matrix. I love a good matrix, from the article we read this week, written by two design researchers named Fostes. I don't really know what their deal is, but it's a very nice article that outlines, I'm going to share two figures from it. First is this matrix of science versus practice and theory versus empirical research, theoretical research versus empirical research. And, as I've made this joke before, here at UX Night School, we are talking about practice, in the immortal words of Allen Iverson. So on one end, on the left end of this axis, we have science, basic science. That is the term for it. Lab science. So chemistry, biology, botany, all of these are really, based in the lab and under very controlled conditions. Whereas practice-based fields are are in everyday life. So biochemical research at, say, the University of Washington in a lab, that is lab science research. Whereas a nurse taking vitals in Alaska or in Seattle, that's practice. And then on the top spectrum, on the top axis of the other axis is theoretical versus empirical. And this is, this is a familiar conundrum to me. So my sister, who is a theoretical physicist, her work is way at the top of the spectrum, way in the sort of top left-hand corner. And my work, doing very empirical, applied empirical research, um, is down in the bottom right. If I do a round of usability tests and work through the process with a client and analyze our results, this is very empirical, and it's very applied. So here we are in this bottom, almost right-hand corner of design research. But this approach we take also can also draw on what we already know. In fact, it should. Anytime we're working with a technology, we want to be using other people's advancements to do things faster, to use computational techniques to our best interests. And this is this is an interesting data science falls in that category. But we also want to draw on on the technology at hand. Thus, this overlap with engineering, because it's often not clear what's an engineering decision and what is a design decision. But in general, we want to practice and we want to measure. We also want to draw on what we've learned, what we can learn from other folks. The FOSTAs also give us this other figure, and in it, research, or just how we get to knowing what we design and how we do it, how we make decisions. This is the core of all of this. And an overarching category is practice. And this is the practice is both every day in the moment, but also over a long period of time, in the period of our careers. So my final point here is that how we perceive this impacts how we act and what methods we take to solve problems. And I want to stress that this is important because of the way that we approach our work. The way that we approach our work impacts not just the everyday decisions we make, but the larger ones as well. So all of this thinking about thinking begets not only how we understand problems, but also how we act on them and which methods we use. And you know what that begets us? It begets us how we design services and systems and the assumptions and beliefs built into that. It shapes what products we build and how to build them. And perhaps most importantly, it shapes how we perceive the users of our products, the people who build them and maintain them, the services that we provide or the services of other people, and how we interact with all of these, both in building technology, but also understanding the impact of current technology. So to close, here's a silly example. I am a very short person, and I often have to use a wooden spoon to get things down from tall shelves. This is a solution. I have a step stool, or I could just climb on the counter like my daughter does. But this is the one I choose most frequently to get the honey and the koala cookies that I stash up there. And once again, it's important to note that we all design solutions and we all contribute to systems every day. A wooden spoon is a type of technology. It's a solution. But where else does technology fit into all of this? Next time, I'll talk a little bit more about how we've approached this particular relationship and how that shapes what we call user experience, as well as a broader history and introduction to human-computer interaction. Next week, for this next week, there's some readings for Module 1 and Module 2. We'll have a journal prompt, and you can also take a look at the learning contract and usability audit, which we'll cover in future videos. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And you know that if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me. Have a great week.